You would be surprised at how many first-year practice owners are making almost no money. There's very little money there in profit, right? What do they actually get to take home? They've generated dollars, but the expenses were almost as much as the dollars. So I just want you to go in with your eyes wide open and know that in addition to this investment into the practice, you're also going to need living money, right? Is what I'm going to call it. What is it? What are you using to keep the lights on at home, pay the mortgage or the rent, put food on the table? That's really important too, right? So the budget that I'm talking about is above and beyond your living money. This is just what do we have available that's not going to put you in the street to start a private practice. You didn't start your practice to barely hang on. I'll guess you started it for freedom, impact, and profit. This is Therapy for Your Money. I'm your host, Julie Harris. I'm an accountant, author of Profit First for Therapists, and CEO of Green Oak Accounting. Over the years, my team and I have partnered with hundreds of private practice owners, whether they're just getting started, scaling into thriving groups, or even preparing to sell. We've seen it all, and we know exactly what makes a practice tick financially. On Therapy for Your Money, I'll help you build a business that truly works for you. You'll get quick, actionable tips and episodes so that you can grow a profitable practice, increase your financial confidence, and pay yourself unapologetically. Because your work is way too important for you to burn out or go broke doing it. Love the podcast? Make sure to follow and give us a 5-star review. Here is Therapy for Your Money. Hello, and welcome back to the third episode of our 3-part series, How I Would Start a Private Practice on a Specific Dollar Amount. So this episode is How I Would Start a Practice on $5,000. I am Julie Harris. I've seen under the hood of hundreds, thousands of practices at this point. And so in this series, I'm having a lot of fun sharing like what I would do if, depending on my budget, at specific price points, like where I would spend money, where I would not spend money, so that you can be informed. So this week we're talking about $5,000. And I wanted to do this series because I just think when you are starting a practice and you have unlimited funds, right? If you have a trust fund or you have a spouse that works and you don't actually need to bring in money and there's plenty of money available, that's the easy part, right? And if you're in that situation, I am super happy for you. You do you can spend money on whatever you would like and it's not really a big deal. But that's just not the reality of most people. And I would say even more specifically, most people in this economy, right? Where money is an object and you do have a limited budget, right? So my recommendation is always when you're starting a practice that you have a specific budget in mind and that you are intentional on how you're going to spend that. And that's money that you're using to start the practice. That's not the money that you are living on. Those are two completely separate things. So what is the money that you are using to invest in the practice so that you can create a business? So a couple of things. The money that you're investing in the practice, if you're using personal money that is not considered income to the practice, right? That is not taxable. So the money that you're putting in is an investment. At a later date, you can pay yourself back tax-free. That's probably not going to happen for a while, right? I want to moderate your expectations. That's probably going to take a while, but at some point you can take that money out, right? But it does take an investment in order to create this revenue generating machine that is a business. So I want you to think about it that way. And so the more money you have, the more you can kind of accelerate that timeline sometimes. And if you don't have a whole lot of money, you might need a longer timeline. And so that's what we're talking about here. In this episode, want to moderate your expectations for what it looks like to jump over from a clinic, a hospital center, a group practice, and to go into practice on your own. I see this often, this question in Facebook groups, something that's along the lines of, what do I need to do to leave my job and start my practice and not have a reduction in income? And that question, honestly, it takes my breath away because that's just not how small business works. It's highly unlikely that you will leave and start something and that next day you're making as much as you used to. Almost never will that happen. So if that is what you need personally, you're going to need to give yourself a nice long runway and start things out or have a backup plan on how you're bringing money in to your household while you are building your practice, because that is highly unusual for it to happen. And actually, I mean, we my team at Green Oak Accounting, we work with hundreds of private practice owners at any given time. We do their tax returns, right? So we see just a lot of the financials. You would be surprised at how many first-year practice owners are making almost no money. There's very little money there in profit, right? What do they actually get to take home? They've generated dollars, but the expenses were almost as much as the dollars. So I just want you to go in with your eyes wide open and know that in addition to this investment into the practice, you're also going to need living money, right? Is what I'm going to call it. What is it? What are you using to keep the lights on at home, pay the mortgage or the rent, put food on the table? That's really important too, right? So the budget that I'm talking about is above and beyond your living money. This is just what do we have available that's not going to put you in the street to start a private practice. That's what we're talking about. Okay, so as we jump in, I want to reiterate these 3 episodes really have been building blocks. So in the first episode, I talked about legal compliance and setting up billing if you're taking insurance and how you're going to take payment. So all of those things still apply, right? If you're starting with a $5,000 budget, I'm still doing most of the things in that $1,000 budget. I'm just some of them I'm spending more money on, right? That is ultimately the difference. So with this kind of bigger budget, you're able to accelerate the process and you're able to delegate more. So you can invest in expert help. You can move faster. You can maybe avoid being overwhelmed. You can also avoid working 2 jobs at one time. If you are starting with a lower budget, you might have to do that for a while. That just might be the reality. And so if that's not the case, if you have a bigger budget, there's probably a shorter amount of time that you have to do that. So this is good for people who are ready to leave their job or don't, have not been working and are ready to ramp up fairly quickly. But this is not how do we replace your full-time income overnight? That takes more than $5,000 and it takes more than a couple of weeks. It just does. And so I would highly recommend that you build your personal emergency fund to cover your living expenses during this transition, or that you have a distinct plan for how are you paying your living expenses. So what would I do differently with a $5,000 budget? I would pay for one-on-one coaching. I do love membership groups. I love free Facebook groups, and I've talked about those in the last 2 episodes. But if you have a little bit more money, I would pay to get some tailored advice specifically for you and what you want to do, and have that coaching from someone who's going to also keep you accountable. Coaching is not cheap, but it does pay off because it's going to help you avoid costly mistakes, move with confidence. Typically, a coach is someone who has a lot of experience, who has done this before. And so they're going to be able to help you reduce your number of mistakes, accelerate the process even more. So you are ultimately paying for their knowledge and their experience as well. Next, I would definitely pay for credentialing. I would not DIY it. I would want to streamline a process as much as possible. I would probably also bring in a biller from almost the very beginning. You want to consider what is going to work for you, but that is often one of the first things that is outsourced. Billing, bookkeeping is the second, and I would say the next one is intake. So, or a combination of those 3. So billing, bookkeeping, intake, those are typically things that get hard to do after a certain point once you get busier. And so the sooner you can get those professionals in place, the sooner you have the support to go faster. Another tool that you can consider here specifically for credentialing and billing is the Billing Assistant Pro. This is a course from Productive Therapists. So I think this course can be really, really helpful in teaching you a lot of the things that you need to know upfront, so that you can then either hire someone or do it yourself. But this is in the $750 range. I'll put a link in the show notes, but definitely worth its weight in gold. If this is something that you plan to do yourself, you need to know what to do. So this is one of the many options available to you, but I will give you a link in case that's helpful. Next, I would also pay for marketing help. I would want to pay probably someone to do ad management because that's what's going to help you fill your practice even faster. I might use a paid Google ad system or someone who's going to manage it for you, who's going to optimize the leads, or the contacts that are coming into your practice, manage the flow, and be able to help you learn as well how those things work. There are levers that you have in your practice as far as like, how do I get clients in, right? There are levers that you can turn so you can see what are the things that create calls and how do I convert those calls into clients, right? There's a lot of different pieces to that funnel and that flow. And so working with professionals who are going to help you save again time and energy and help you start with a best practice instead of having to figure it all out on your own. I do think that is usually going to be worth it. I might then also invest in specialized support for intake and admin, right? That's often something that you want to get rid of pretty quickly. So if you can afford it, I would probably hire a specialized virtual assistant. I might look at productive therapists. They have a great group of virtual assistants or VAs. They are highly specialized. It's a great place to start. Talk to them and get the kind of support that you need and can afford. So this person can often handle some scheduling, some reminders, light admin tasks, right? They're going to free up time for clinical work. So that can be money really well spent. Next, because you have more money, I would spend again more money on website branding, right? This is a case where if you have $5,000 to get started, I might go with something better than your minimum viable product. I might actually get a logo design that you love. I might get a website that you are really excited about. It's not going to be a huge website, and you probably don't need a huge website at this point, but something that you are really excited about. Great, go for it, do it. This can help you stand out, have the look that you're going for, and then again, it's going to save you time later, right? Where you're not having to redo it again a little bit later. If you have a $5,000 budget, I would definitely talk to an attorney as well. I just think there's a lot of things that you don't know. I would get a professional consultation with an attorney to make sure that you are setting everything up correctly. That's often going to run you somewhere between $300 and $500 for that 1 hour. They get paid really well. But this is an area where a little bit of prevention can save you lots of money later. So I would probably consult with an attorney so that you can do things correctly from the very beginning. If you're just starting out on your own, there's not a whole lot of things that can go wrong, but if you have the money for it, it never hurts to have a relationship with an attorney who is going to make sure that you are doing things okay. I would also probably get some help sooner than later from an accountant. You can either consult with a tax accountant to make sure that you understand how this is going to work, how much you should be paying in quarterly estimated taxes, how much you should be saving for taxes. You might also want to invest in bookkeeping from the very beginning. You typically are not going to need this while you're still in a pre revenue phase when there's no revenue coming into the practice, but shortly after you could decide to line things up so that you are ready to go with that once you start generating money in the practice. Even with this bigger budget, there's still not room for everything. So something I'm not spending money on, even with this $5,000 budget, is retreats. They can be really great, but retreats tend to be more inspiration heavy. And what you actually need at this point is just to get the work done. You are already inspired to start your practice. You don't really need more of that. You need to actually get to work and get the ads up and running, get the website up, like do the things. And so I don't think it is a good idea to be spending money on a retreat, specifically if you're going abroad or going somewhere that's out of town for you, that's just going to eat up a ton of your budget and not necessarily have a direct ROI. Later on down the road, when your practice is established, that's definitely something that you can do. But in this startup phase, no, I would definitely skip that. Okay, let's do a budget recap here. So I'm doing all of the things from the $1,000 budget. I'm doing most of the things from the $3,000 budget with additions, right? I'm spending more money on website. I'm probably getting a virtual assistant or someone who can assist with some of the administrative tasks. I'm definitely still paying for credentialing. I'm paying here for ads, ad management, and I'm also paying for coaching. Those are the two big difference in that $5,000 budget because it's only two extra $1,000. That's a lot of money, and it's not at the same time. I'm paying for some coaching, I'm paying for ads, and I'm probably spending a little bit more money in a few areas as well. But as far as like the software stack, the domain of the website, all of those things are just going to remain the same. You still need a business bank account, right? That's just something that you always still need. We're just spending a little bit more money in some of these other categories. So with a $5,000 budget, you can move faster, you can delegate what you don't love, and you can get to a full practice sooner. Ultimately, a lot of that is going to depend on you. You have to do the actions that are going to fill your practice. You have to be the one to answer the phone or respond to the email and convert that caller into a client, right? Get them on your schedule. You're the one who has to do that hard work. You're the one who has to do the billing or process the payment to make sure that the money is coming in. Like, you have full agency in this business that is yours. It's all you. No one is coming to save you. You have full responsibility. And with that comes a lot of freedom, but it is a lot of responsibility. So if you do come to private practice with this larger budget, $5,000, invest in yourself, invest in your practice. Now, to save yourself headaches down the road, it can help you accelerate growth, but you will still need patience and persistence and a whole lot of hard work. That is the case for a business of any size, and it's the case for most businesses. There are going to be seasons that are less demanding, certainly, and there are going to be seasons where you can reap the rewards of everything that you have created and sown. But that startup phase, it's hard for every single practice, and you just have to get to work and get the work done and get through it so that you can get through to the other side and get to a good place. I would be remiss, since we're talking about starting a practice, if I did not mention that Profit First is a great cash flow management system for a startup practice. When you are able to start your practice using Profit First from day one, you are in such a good position cash flow wise. It really is a book that will give you a lot of direction as far as how you are supposed to manage cash in your business. That's some feedback that I get all the time from readers is, I didn't think I would learn so much about running a practice from reading a book about cash flow. And so I highly, highly recommend, if you have not checked it out yet, check out Profit First for Therapists. This is my copy here. There's also a Profit First for Therapists workbook as well. This is great for running through lots of examples. Very, very nitty gritty in the details. So I do encourage you to check that out. And we also have a membership group called Profit First Academy. So if you want to start off on the right foot from the very beginning, Profit First Academy is just $54 a month. So that might be a great way to get your financial house in order from the very beginning, if that can fit in your budget. So once again, I encourage you to go to therapyforyourmoney.com, check out the show notes where you will see all the resources that we've talked about during these episodes. And I encourage you to reach out to me if you have additional resources that you have used while you were starting your practice, or that you are using while starting your practice right now, and you think our listeners should know about it. Let us know. Send us a message through the website at therapyforyourmoney.com. All right. I hope you enjoyed this 3-part series. If you missed the other 2 weeks, go listen to them. They should be available anywhere you listen to podcasts. And we'll see you next week for a brand new topic. Take care. That's it for today's episode of Therapy for Your Money. Catch us on Instagram and Facebook at Therapy for Your Money Podcast. And don't forget to subscribe to Green Oak Accounting on YouTube. Until next time.
The information contained in this podcast represents the host and guest's general opinions and should not be construed as personalized accounting and tax advice. Listeners should consider all facts and circumstances before applying this information and seek appropriate advice from an accountant, financial planner, lawyer, or other professional. Any info provided does not constitute accounting, tax, or legal advice.